Hello, I'm Damon Cain, editor of the Beckley Register-Herald, and I am joined today by reporter Wendy Holdren and three candidates for mayor of Beckley, Dr. Ayne Amjad, Mr. Rappold, and Mr. Cedric Robertson. We invited the three candidates for a conversation about the future of the city and how they would lead us as mayor. So let's get to it. Folks, first of all, what we want to do is just have you take a minute or two, starting with you, Doctor, and give us a vision for the city. Tell us what you see in the next 2 to 4 years.
Well, thank you for having us.
You're welcome.
I think it's important to get us all together and have a nice discussion. So, for me, the vision in the next 2 to 4 years is something obviously a lot better than what we have right now. I think with WVU coming into the city, we're going to see an influx of people in the city, which hopefully will bring in more business and more recognition into the city. With that being said, we need to make sure we're ready for them to come in, and for me, that's part of what this process is about, is just becoming prepared for that influx of people, hopefully new businesses, new students, and so forth, and hopefully that in turn will make Beckley turn around into a better place.
Okay. Mr. Rappold?
Yes, sir. Thank you also for this opportunity. I honestly get so excited about the future of Beckley that I don't sleep at night. Wake up thinking about things that are on the horizon. As Dr. Amjad mentioned, sure can't ignore the influence that WVU will have coming to Beckley. One of my goals would be to do everything I could to influence the new development of WVU toward the west, toward our big project, creating in time that tremendous foot traffic of 3,000 to 5,000 students commuting from the South Kanawha campus to the area of the big project. The big project hasn't reached its full potential yet, as we know. It's a little bit of a financial burden now due to the bond cost that our parking revenue doesn't quite cover. That building was designed in a manner which would allow us to add numerous floors to it. I think in time that would be a boon. We do need to do everything we can to make Beckley show well. That was a big item in the task force. We need to create a list of priorities, and we need to follow those extensively. From sidewalks to other repairs in the city and the streets. This is my vision, to make Beckley a great college town, as Dr. Gee said it would be. I would like to see Beckley become a theater, arts, and entertainment and dining center. We've all been to towns, whether it's Brevard, North Carolina, or Fayetteville, West Virginia, or Lewisburg, that we can't wait to get back to because they're fun, they're exciting. There's culture there, and I think that WVU will aid in that sort of development. So, to summarize, I'm so darn excited about the future of Beckley that I have trouble sleeping at night.
Okay. Mr. Robertson?
Again, thank you all for inviting me. I think this is great. I've been a resident of Beckley for all my life. I love this place. I went to school here. I played ball here. I was a police officer here for 30 plus years. My vision is to see the city of Beckley flourish. I think we need to deal with the crime in our city. I think we need to clean up our city, the dilapidated buildings, and the houses in the community where the students from West Virginia Tech might be staying. I don't think parents of these students who want their children staying in a place where crime is taking place, where there's hazards in the community. And I think also we need to have more diversity here in the city of Beckley. That's including the police department and the fire department. And I think in the future, coal, I don't think is coming back. I think we need to turn our attention to technology, education, and tourism. And I'm excited, like Mr. Rappold said, as far as being a part of this, because I love the city of Beckley.
Okay. Wendy?
Dr. Amjad, you've mentioned briefly before that these candidates are running on the ballot and you're running as a write-in candidate. Can you talk to us a little bit about missing that deadline?
The mayoral candidate is, it's a big decision to make. It was not something that I didn't make unlikely. So when the deadline came and passed, I had decided maybe it wasn't the best timing for me. I'm very busy already. And then after some time of thinking, I knew you could be a write-in candidate, so I figured why not try. I know it's difficult to win as a write-in candidate. It puts things at a different perspective. But at the same time, whether or not I win or not, at least my ideas have been put out there. Maybe they give some other people some ideas. So I don't feel bad that I missed that deadline. It makes it harder for my campaign, so to speak. But, that decision was not taken lightly. This isn't a high school, election process. I really had to think about it. I had to speak with my staff. I had to speak with my family and with myself a lot to see if it's something I could really do. So in that part, I don't regret missing the deadline. It was something I had to really decide. I didn't want to throw my hat in the ring early on and then withdraw. To me, that's more of an embarrassment for myself rather than being a write-in candidate.
Okay. All right. During our last conversation, you mentioned the need to feel secure and safe in the city, then focus on aesthetics. So can you talk to us about your plan for that?
I think, from what I understand, the police department has received some grants to hire new officers. From what I understand, it takes anywhere from 3 to 4 years to get those police officers from the academy to the actual grounds, and even from then for them to be confident enough to start working. So I think with that being said, we need more money to hire police officers, but we also need more, advertising to people who want to become a police officer. I think it's not no one knows about it as much. It doesn't seem as popular as it was maybe a few years ago. A lot of kids, you don't hear them talking about going to the police academy and so forth, young people. So not only do we need more money to hire more, we need a larger pool of applicants to get in there, because from what I understand, a lot of them don't even make the whole process. They might pass this one part, but then they fail another part, so you're losing all these people in transition. So we definitely need to have money, obviously, and then even more interest in the community. And for someone who wants to stay, a lot of people leave after they've been trained by the police department because they find more money somewhere else, which is natural. So have to have some incentive for them to stay in the area, which is usually local people. So if we can reach out to local people, would be better.
Mr. Rappold, you've been with the city a long time. You served as city councilman for a while.
22 years, right?
There you go. And now you're recorder treasurer for the city. And yet the city's been in a state of decline during that time. How did we get here, and why wasn't this arrested earlier?
Well, with all due respect, during the time that I have been recorder treasurer, the city has not been in a state of decline. The perfect storm of the coal industry, low gas prices, natural gas prices, the closing of MSU, combined to make it a very difficult situation from the year about 2011 through 2014. City council at that time, and I was not serving, frankly, went against the better judgment of the then recorder treasurer and awarded raises to the city, maybe for political reasons, maybe just for lack of knowledge of how the budget works. But that had a big play in the start of the financial decline. We became very aggressive under my leadership in the B&O tax collection. Those collections are up considerably. It amounts to roughly 1/2 of our $20 million budget. We initiated a program whereby we more aggressively charge landlords in Beckley a B&O tax. They're business people. In the past, they had gotten by for whatever reason without paying their share of B&O. So we've done a lot of things to, I quarterbacked our effort to become a home rule city, which, if our projections are correct, and we hope they are, I'll say that a number of those projections were made prior to the severe decline in the coal industry, the loss of 1,000 jobs in Raleigh County. So day to day, my efforts are geared toward seeing where we stand financially, evaluating the financial statements, looking weekly at our cash and investment report to see what our cash position is. The city is in much better shape. it would be naive to think that the amount of money that we're taking out of circulation due to these loss of coal jobs in Raleigh County won't have a detrimental effect on our income. And I think it's somebody with my financial experience that it takes to oversee this. I had a 27-year career in the insurance industry where I managed regions and individual offices that produced in excess of $35 million a year in gross billings. I supervised literally hundreds of people during that career. I think I'm qualified to do this. I would go as far as to say that I am so invested in the future of this city and its financial stability that I would pledge for a one-year period if elected mayor. If the code would allow it, I will continue to serve as recorder treasurer as well as the mayor of this city for 1 year. Following which I would move into the mayor's position. At which time we're going to be looking at the city management form of government. That was a strong recommendation, the strongest recommendation by the task force that the mayor appointed recently. We're going to take a hard look at that. It may be the way to go.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit more about the B&O tax. As I understand it, that gives the city the right to create a 1% sales tax.
Well, actually, that's a little bit of a misnomer the way you stated it. We reduced the B&O tax in order to qualify as a home rule city and to enact the 1% consumer sales tax, which 26 other cities in the state have done. We had to reduce our B&O tax rate in at least one classification. We reduced it in 3. We reduced our B&O tax rate in retail by 20%. We reduced it in amusement. We reduced it in manufacturing. I think that Beckley has such a bright future in small manufacturing. We need to turn the corner. We have some of the best machinists, some of the best tool and die makers that have been related to the coal industry for years. We have a local company, Phillips Machine, that shipped continuous miner shuttle cars, roof bolters, all over to every continent in the world. Now we know what's happened to coal. We can no longer sustain that business on coal alone. They've shifted gears. They've become a fabricator and a manufacturer of a product which the city just bought that is marketed under the Renova brand, which is an asphalt recycler and paver. It allows the city at about 20 tons an hour to patch potholes, to patch cuts made by utility companies. These units sell. We purchased ours under a lease purchase arrangement for $107,000. They're now selling from $130,000 to $150,000.
I guess my concern here, my question is really focused on the 1% consumer sales tax. So by trimming taxes on business, essentially, you're hitting those folks who have the least ability to pay.
Well,
isn't a consumer sales tax more detrimental to lower income people?
I guess if that's your line of thinking and you feel it's a regressive tax, it's not something that, as I've mentioned, some 26 other cities in the state are not doing. The thing I like about the consumer sales tax is that it takes the burden off of those of us in this room who may live in the city limits and appreciate the fire and police protection, appreciate what Public Works does for us in terms of maintenance and upkeep of the roads, but it also spreads that tax burden to that traveler from exit 44. If he has a car fire, he knows the city of Beckley's fire department is going to respond. If he has a pickpocket or a crime incident, he knows the city of Beckley police department is going to respond. He hopefully will drive on city roads while he's visiting Beckley that are well maintained. So it spread, in my opinion, it spreads that tax base from you and me and those of us in this room to those of us, to those who travel and still expect the same kind of services we enjoy. So no, I don't think it's...
Okay. Mr. Robertson has said that coal's never coming back. What's your take?
I think talking to people in the industry, 6 or 7 years ago, coal produced 52% of the electricity across the country. Now it's below 30. those in the industry feel like that it hasn't quite yet bottomed out, and it will never come back like it did in the hills and valleys of the 70s and 80s. But it will reach a floor whereby those well-managed companies, and there'll be larger companies, will survive. You can't cut off you can't turn the light switch off overnight.
Okay, thank you. Wendy?
Mr. Cain, can I
Yes,
go back and
please.
and Mr. Rappold had said that we got into this financial burden with giving pay raises and so forth. Well, I was on council, and when we inquired about the pay raises, we asked the city recorder, was there sufficient money to address pay raises? And we were told that it was. So that's where the pay raises came about that Mr. Rappold was referring to.
The coverage that I had, not to disagree, but the coverage I had was the question was, will these raises bankrupt the city of Beckley? And the recorder treasurer said no, but please remember, we're not playing with monopoly money. This is real money. That's the way I recollected that particular.
Can I add something too about
Absolutely.
about the home rule and
Yeah.
B&O taxes? You know, nobody likes sales taxes to be increased. What Mr. Rappold says, you know, about tourism and so forth adding to the economy. But looking back, you know, if we want to increase businesses to come into Beckley and we want to decrease B&O taxes, I don't know if the ones that we addressed are necessarily the best ones. You know, looking through some things, the construction companies have a 2% tax. If we want people to build in this area, I would think that should be lowered, even 1/4%, 0.5%. That might encourage people to build in this area. Some of the highest taxes are with construction, with the water companies, natural gas resources. If we're looking to go past coal and build up Beckley community, those are the areas that the B&O taxes should be decreased on in the future, rather than the other ones, which in turn it kind of goes against with the sales tax. If we're going to look at retail and so forth, those kind of go hand in hand, and they're just kind of offsetting each other rather than making one go up and the other go down. That's just something that I was going over in the last couple of days. But I know construction is a big issue. 2% is very high, and there's no way we're going to get people to want to come in here with such high B&O taxes. Well, West Virginia is 15th in the country with the highest B&O taxes with federal and state levels. We're almost at 28% with a capital gains tax. So there's not a business that wants to come into West Virginia, and that's, you know, on another state, federal, Senate level that we have to address. But Beckley itself is down with taxes too much. So.
May I speak to one of Dr. Amjad's comments there? I think one of the goals of making our largest reduction the B&O tax, which the business pays, is the fact that we have retailers that are in the donut holes that are now just beyond the current city limits that we hope to entice to come in, who haven't, due to B&O taxes in the past, being a big part of the reason, haven't chosen to become members of the city of Beckley. Going back just a little bit, at the Rotary debate presentation that the three of us participated in, Dr. Amjad rightfully mentioned that her favorite restaurants are the Char and the Chop House and the Dish, all three of which are wonderful restaurants that my wife and I treat ourselves to a nice treat occasionally. Dr. Amjad made the comment, why do we even encourage these chains to hang around? Well, you know, I like McDonald's. I like Bob Evans. I like Applebee's. And I like them for three reasons. Number one, they serve good food to a very dedicated clientele. Number two, these companies have never, in my knowledge, rejected a request by a charity to participate in a fundraiser for a good event. But number three, as recorder treasurer, yeah, I want them to hang around. They pay a lot of B&O taxes. So I think that, you know, there's a mixed message here, maybe coming from Dr. Amjad on the B&O and its effect.
No, there was a mixed message at the Rotary Club. My point with those restaurants was that we should support local owners of local businesses. That if we want, the question posed to me at that time was, how do we get more businesses to come in? And the idea was that if you have local restaurants who are locally owned by local people, was to try to support them as much as possible. Of course, everybody needs a McDonald's and Applebee's. Of course, they pay money. Of course, they are the more affordable places to eat for tourists. But as a city, if we expect a new Bojangles is coming into town, is in the paper. I mean, that's great. That's wonderful. They're doing great in Princeton. But if we want places like the Dish or Lavash or the Char, who we all know those owners, and they do participate in the United Way, they're big partners in the community, we have to support them as consumers. I'm not saying not go to those other restaurants, but those are taken differently out of context. So.
Well, your comment was, and I could be paraphrasing, your comment was, I don't know why we even encourage these chains to hang around.
Yes, because we should try to support local communities. Even with a gas station, I don't know, I mean, I still go to the local one near Woodrow Wilson. I mean, there's a Sheetz. Do I go there? Yes, but as much as possible, as a community, we should support local communities as much as possible. That was the point there. It was not that, of course chains are going to come in. Those bring in the most money. I'm not, aloof to that point, but the question at that time to me was, how do we get more businesses to be in Beckley, to stay in Beckley, and the idea was to support them as a community. So that was taken out of complete context.
Okay, we're ready to change gears just a little bit, and we'll shift the focus to the city's crime rate. I wanted to talk to you, Mr. Robertson, specifically. You've worked with the police department 30 plus years. You've sat as a councilman at large for the past several years. So talk to us about the crime rates that you saw whenever you were a police officer, the crime rates now, and how we got to where we are today.
Well, when I was a police officer, I began in 1975. Marijuana was the big drug then. As I went on, then it became crack cocaine. And crack cocaine became prevalent in the black community. So we began an officer exchange program where we would bring officers from other departments in the northern part of the state, and we would send officers to that part to try to infiltrate the drug war at the time. Now, what we did when I was a police officer, we started community policing, where we would put officers in the community, and I was one of the police officers in the community, and we got to know who the drug dealers were. We got to gain the trust of the community, and the community members began giving us information, knowing that we would not release their name, and we would just conduct an investigation. Back then, the violence was, in my opinion, more prevalent than the violence is now due to drugs. So we began working with the United States Attorney's Office and began arresting, and it was Jamaicans back then at the time. So we were able, through community policing and the community involvement, was able to arrest so many people for drugs. Now, today, and I live in Ward 5 where a lot of this goes on, there are, in my opinion, maybe 2 to 3% of bad people, but the drugs are still prevalent. I think we need to get back to community policing. I think we need to put the police officers back in the community, back in the precincts, and have the police officers to build that trust between the community and the police, because I believe that's the bridge, the police department, the community, and the churches. I think we have a precinct over in East Beckley. We got one in East Park and on Maxwell Hill. I think those precincts need to be manned. And I think once we can start rebuilding trust between the community and police, we can put a dent in crime. We won't be able to stop it, but to add to that, the dilapidated houses create a haven for drug dealers to hang out, to sell drugs, to do their drugs. Now, I've been living here in Beckley all my life, and there was a vacant house beside my house. It was there for 10 or 11 years, and drug paraphernalia, drug people was doing drugs in that house. We finally got it tore down, and I'm very appreciative with the Mr. Rappold and the current mayor. But we can put a dent in this crime. And with the pill and heroin, you can ask any police officer. We will never, ever arrest our way out of this situation. We have to be compassionate to the addiction, and we have to be hard on the people that bring drugs in here to sell them.
All right. So you also mentioned, coal is pretty much dead in this economy today. The promotion of tourism you mentioned is something that's really important for the city to grow. Right now we have the Exhibition Coal Mine, we've got the Raleigh Playhouse and Theater, Theater West Virginia, but that's not a whole lot of choices. So what are some of your ideas to increase the number of venues, or what are your plans for that?
Well, I don't think the government can create businesses. I think we must maintain a good relationship with businesses to sell them to come into the city of Beckley. I think we have to provide the police protection, the fire protection, and the maintenance of our roads to help businesses flourish. I just think we need to sell the city of Beckley to other businesses outside of the donut holes to try to come in.
Let's continue, Mr. Robertson. We're going to talk about the economy here a little bit, and I've been told that the city has enough resources to fix a few potholes and fund city fire and city police, and that's about it. But is that accurate? And even if it is slightly hyperbole and an exaggeration, what ideas do you have to revitalize the economy? What's going to replace the coal revenues that have gone away?
I think with West Virginia Tech coming in, that's probably going to be one of our biggest economic engines to the city of Beckley. And I think we need to market the city of Beckley to help West Virginia Tech be able to flourish and make it safe for the school and the students to get a solid, safe education. And with the businesses, I don't think businesses will want to locate here if we've got blighted buildings, we've got dilapidated houses, and we have crime. So I think we need to take care of our city first, and along with that, invite businesses to come in and see what we have to offer.
Any further details? I mean, yeah, we need to take care of crime, we need to take care of dilapidated housing, but how do we do that? Dr. Amjad said earlier in her opening comments that we need to make sure we're prepared for this influx of people, and I get the sense that we're not really prepared just yet. So, do you have any detailed plans?
No, but I think we are ready. We are ready. I think if I'm elected mayor, I will do everything in my power to make sure that we are ready to take this city to another level.
And what are the economic growth opportunities for the city?
I think with the home rule and the 1% sales tax, I think it's going to help. I think with other businesses coming in, the restaurants and so forth, is going to help. It's going to be slow. It's going to be slow. It's going to take time, but I think we will be okay.
At a recent council meeting, Police Chief Lonnie Christian mentioned that over the past 4 years and some odd months, Beckley's seen 15 murders, and 75% of the victims were African Americans. So I just wanted to ask you as mayoral candidates, does the city and its police force have a race problem, and is it being adequately addressed if so?
Number one, I do not think we have a race problem. I will say that thanks to people like Mr. Robertson, Councilman Booker, our ministers, including Bishop Sims, Pastor Leach, we've worked behind the scenes so hard to get the population of our fire department and our police department more into that 22-23% range that the minority community in Beckley represents.
Where is that right now?
Well, I think that it will soon be announced in the police department that we will have at least one minority from the most recent test. I don't know if I'm authorized to make that statement or not, but having some inside knowledge, I think that's what we'll see.
So what's the percentage right now? I'm not aware of what the number is, do you know?
Cedric, you would have a better idea. We have a total of 46 officers on the police department.
That's right, and you've got 7 new hires.
I think we have 5 African Americans,
Okay.
and we have right now 1 female, white female.
So 5 out of 46 is 1 in 9 by 11%, about half
That's
of the
where we
city's
would like to be.
population.
Right, right.
In the fire department, we have no minorities or females.
But again, to Mr. Robertson's credit, Bishop Sims' credit, a number, 5 or 6 sessions were held at the Heart of God Ministries, attracting not only minorities, but certainly due to its location and the encouragement of Mr. Robertson and Bishop Sims, we were directing our efforts toward minorities for the, to show all of these folks interested in taking the entry-level firefighter exam. We gave them samples of the tests. We coached them on how to take the test. So, you know, we've really worked hard behind the scenes, and I think we're getting there. But to say that Beckley has a race problem, I think is incorrect. I do think that the influx of the drug and gun influence from Chicago, Columbus, Ohio, Detroit, may have contributed to what may be perceived as a race problem. The shootings, the open shootings, and this is where I disagree just a little bit with Councilman Robertson. In a recent, at the Rotary seminar, he made the statement that when he was on the police department in the 80s and 90s, crime really didn't differ much than it does today. But we have open shootings. We had one a couple of days ago on Plumley Street. If I'm elected mayor, one of my plans would be to dedicate the resources that we currently dedicate to the Maxwell Hill precinct, to get a precinct in that Hager Street area where we have a presence. If there's any part of Beckley that needs a constant police presence, in my opinion, it's the Hager Street area. But to say that we have a race problem, no, I don't. And I began my conversation by saying I grew up, born and raised in Beckley, grew up playing ball, going to school with minorities, and we had zero problem then. And in my mind, without the outside influence that we see from the cities I mentioned, we have practically a zero problem now. There's tremendous cooperation from the church communities. People want to get along, and that's my perception.
Dr. Amjad, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, when I think of, when you asked me a question before about race problem, you know, in the outside media we see race problems meaning a white police officer shoots an African American suspect. You know, the murders you mentioned in this area, I don't know, it wasn't a police officer hurting these individuals, it was something internal. So on the outside, no, Beckley doesn't have the race problems that you hear in the media, like on CNN and other states, because these problems are more of an internal community problem where these people have hurt each other. It wasn't like a police officer came in and hurt, you know, somebody in that sense. So, you know, diversifying the police department, fire department is great. To get more people interested is good, but I've never seen either, myself growing up here, any type of discrepancy between different races. I mean, all 3 of us are different races and have been living here for a long time. I've never felt that way. I've never seen that or heard that in the media. And, you know, 75% of the recent murders are African American. That's a separate issue, not necessarily a police force issue or something that comes across to me.
But doesn't that grab, go ahead.
And that goes back to my comment, you know, the murders in the African American community. That goes back to my comment as far as building trust between the community and the police. That's how you get information to get arrest warrants. When someone can call you and tell you, you know, such and such did this, such and such was there. Because the police cannot do anything without the help of the community. So that's where the trust factor comes in.
How do we do that?
Well, you got to go back to community policing. You got to get out of your cars, and when you see people, you just talk to them. How are your day? Is there something that I can do to help make your community better? Is your street light out? I mean, just small conversations creates a trust between the police and the community.
Is that a conversation you're going to have with the police chief if you're elected mayor, that I want to go to community policing?
That's correct, yes.
And then that effort is already underway. Community policing and policing by geography or zones. And this accomplishes what Mr. Robertson says. Right now, due to our reduction of manpower and operating below our peak manpower unit of 53 officers, somebody in one neighborhood may not see the same police officer on a rotation of 3 different shifts. Our goal would be to have that 1 or 2 police officers patrol that zone, as Mr. Robertson says, be out of the car, get to know what's going on, open the lines of communication so that that bond is built. And it's built with 1 or 2 or 3 officers depending on the shift, and not just that random officer that may, through his cruising a lot of different neighborhoods, happen through that neighborhood. So that effort with Chief Christian is already underway.
Okay.
Mr. Robertson, you mentioned something about our prescription drug abuse epidemic, the heroin problems that we're seeing. You mentioned that we can't arrest our way out of a problem. So what's a step in the right direction that we can take to fighting this epidemic?
I think one step is treatment, and I know it creates a financial problem, but there are local organizations that are available, such as One Voice. The Heart of God Ministries has Project Hope. There's FMRS. I think we need to try to use these facilities to try to identify people who are addicted and be compassionate to these individuals and try to get them help. And the governor's substance abuse program, we're in District 6, and they've been meeting. I think we need to try to tap in to the governor's abuse program and use what we have locally.
Okay. I'd like to hear your perspective as a physician on this, if you wouldn't mind.
I mean, I agree with what Mr. Robertson's saying. A big part of it is treatment and options for treatment, and I've mentioned this multiple times, a lot of times in the paper we see physicians who are doing things wrong, and that's a different story altogether. But we need treatments for people who are addicted. Beckley doesn't have any treatment centers. A lot of people go to, I think, Covington in Virginia, a place in Huntington. These are inpatient rehab treatments for 30, 40 days. So we don't have that. There have been talks about trying to have something like that, because the only things now we have are Suboxone clinics, methadone clinics, things like that, which are very short term. There's counseling that's mandated in a lot of these clinics, but that only goes so far. A lot of people need inpatient rehab. So the biggest thing is to find resources to help people. There are a lot of churches that try to help communities. They do some of the counseling services for those patients. But just enough to get them through in a few months, and then they're right back to that. So they have to have other ways to deal with it, hopefully with employment, education, and so forth. But it trickles down the whole family is the problem that you see a lot of these issues. So it's almost become a family history questionnaire now, if family's been on drugs. So treatment's the best.
Beckley's the hub of so many things in this area. I mean, people come to Beckley to shop, for entertainment, dine, and we see, you all see great things, as we do, with the coming of WVU and WVU Tech, and we're all excited about that as well. But shouldn't this place also be a hub to medical treatment for for those around us, and especially in the coal fields where a lot of the injuries took place, where a lot of the addictions started. Shouldn't we be the home for treatment?
I mean, I agree, and I agree with Dr. Amjad's assessment of the need for basically one-on-one treatment facilities. It's good to do things in a group consultation method. We have seven, as I understand it, we have seven quote-unquote drug treatment centers in Raleigh County. I think most of those are within the city limits of Beckley. We have waiting lines of people who need one-on-one professional treatment. As Dr. Amjad said, the consultative group treatment, the prescribing of a substitute semi-narcotic, for lack of a better term, is very short term. I'm the Secretary-Treasurer of the New River Gorge Regional Development Authority, and learned last night at our quarterly meeting that we had a representative traveling to Morgantown to meet with the WVU College of Public Health to do an intensive study in southern West Virginia as to what the drug problem really is, who really needs help, do we need more drug treatment centers, do we need more professional help. Along those same lines, I'm a huge fan of Lily's Place, which is located in Huntington, which it offers acute and very compassionate treatment of newborns that are born with this opioid and other drug addictions. I would propose, as the mayor of Beckley, we now contribute a sizable amount of money to organizations like the Beckley Raleigh County Library, the Humane Society, the EOC, Emergency Operations Center. I would like to see a public-private organization that would create something like Lily's Place that would give these poor infants born addicted the kind of treatment they need, or otherwise they're going to have a life of misfortune and a very low production. It's something that's going to affect them and those around them for the rest of their lives.
Okay. So let's shift our focus to Uptown. That's down the center of a lot of conversations. And we'd be interested in hearing your ideas on the revitalization of old buildings, demolition or reconstruction. Right now, one of the centers of conversations is the old newspaper building. And of course we have block grants, a block grant of some size that could take care of a good bit of that, but that would also mean that, I believe I'm getting this right, there'd be fewer funds to address dilapidated buildings out in the community. What's the best way to spend those block grant funds?
Well, let me address the issue as far as downtown, and starting with the old Beckley newspaper.
Yes.
If there are investors out there that want to invest and try to restore it, fine, I'm for that. But the building has been there for so long now. It's an eyesore. It's a hazard. And if I'm not mistaken, I think there's been a death there. I think that the building needs to come down. I just think...
Do you have any hope, not to interrupt, but do you have any hope that somebody will come in and build something there? Or is it going to be another hole in the ground in downtown Beckley?
Well, any hope? I would hope so, but for the several years, nothing has happened. And it's a total eyesore for the downtown Beckley. When someone comes here to do business and they're driving down Prince Street and they see that building, it's an eyesore.
But that'll take significant amounts of money to bring that down, correct?
Yes.
And so you're willing to spend that money there rather than in the communities to take care of dilapidated housing. I guess that's the essence of it, which is better.
Balance it out. That building needs to come down.
Okay.
It needs to come down, in my opinion.
Folks, do you have any
Speaking of grants,
Yeah.
between the CDBG grants we receive and the numerous police grants that we receive, the grants that we receive from the generosity of local foundations, believe it or not, Beckley receives in the neighborhood of $5 million in grants during the year's period, which is 25% of our $20 million budget. So Dr. Amjad has emphasized the need to have a grant writer. We work with a professional grant firm who will write grants for us, who manages our CDBG grants for us. There is currently funding in our current stream of HUD funding, CDBG funding, to take the newspaper building down, if that's what the final conclusion is. The newspaper building, I agree with Mr. Robertson, is what we called in the insurance business during my 27 career an attractive nuisance, and that means that it attracts individuals, situations that are in fact a public nuisance. Mr. Robertson's correct. A gentleman fell to his death through the rusted grating of the newspaper building a year or so ago. The funds will be there, and I agree. I've been on every floor of that building. I have not seen a homeless person there, but I've seen evidence of where they actually build fires during the winter to stay warm. Mm-hmm. I've seen litter. I've seen crumbling infrastructure. It is so dangerous that our police chief has prohibited his officers from going in the newspaper building on a regular basis, just due to the liability issue. In my opinion, $5 million in rehabilitation wouldn't begin to touch what would have to be done to that building to make it safe and inhabitable.
Okay, Dr. Amjad.
If I don't disagree with what they're saying, but if we have to choose, like we were saying, and Mr. Robertson was weighing his hands out, that might be something to ask the community public. If we have $1 million and we have to this year either tear down that building or tear down these other dilapidated buildings in this X amount of town, which do you as a community think is more important to do this year? That would be something I would pose just to get an idea. And then of course, those decisions might not be made fully by those groups of people who are, answering those questions, but it's not going to be an easy choice to make. But that might be something to ask the community, because obviously the people who are living around those dilapidated areas are more affected. Nobody lives downtown necessarily. Of course, it's a hazard and has all these other risks, but that might be something to outweigh if we can't make those decisions so strongly, is to get the community's response.
Well, with all due respect, Dr. Amjad, not to interrupt, before a penny of CDBG money or HUD money is spent, we are required to run 2 classified legal ads and advertise in any other way that deems reasonable for a public hearing. And that if the decision, if it should come to a decision on the Beckley newspaper building, there will be a public hearing with 2 weeks notice of that public hearing for public input. Before we can spend a penny of HUD money, we're required by law to have that public hearing for the community to come to City Hall, voice their opinion, and to give us suggestions. And in a lot of respects, those the decisions are not pre-made. The input from the public is very important. And in terms of funds that have been spent on recreation for some of our community parks, funds that have been designated for demolition have come from these meetings. So we have public input.
No, but if
We're
they
required to by law.
No, I understand that, but if they come to this meeting and they say, we don't want this building torn down, where's the money going to go? Do they know it's going to go to those other buildings, or do they just know it's not going to go towards the destruction of that building? I don't know.
Well, I think we're splitting hairs on that deal, but public input is valued.
Well, let's talk just a little bit about how there's a little bit of a disconnect between the general public and common council. That's, the legal ads, it's not exactly how we reach a younger audience today. So would you guys be open-minded to the idea of creating like a city Facebook page or ways to reach younger audiences to drive input from that younger community?
Absolutely. I think we're in the process of that now. We're updating our website now using a local firm. I'll have to admit, I am not a Facebook aficionado, and the only reason I'm on Facebook is because those who advised me when I announced that I was running for mayor said I had to be on Facebook. I don't know how to navigate Facebook. I don't know the first thing about Facebook, but I think that the younger people do, and I agree. I think that would be for Beckley to have a Facebook site. Maybe we do. Cedric, does the city have?
I think.
I think we do.
I don't think for this kind of information.
Yeah, maybe not. But I agree. I would love to. I would love to go to the different high schools and form a youth council. These are our leaders. And I'm 68 years old. We need younger people interested in city government. And I think that this would be an excellent opportunity to get fresh ideas, to show young people that we're interested in investing in them, and hopefully they will see enough of the future in Beckley through their input to remain here and to further stimulate our economy.
Well, with all due respect, guys, you've been on city council for a number of years. Why hasn't that outreach happened?
Well, I haven't been on since 2011.
You've been part of city government.
No,
Uh,
no, I was in private industry from 2011 until a year and a half ago.
Right.
I was on city council for 22 years.
Exactly.
And I'm really proud to say that during my term on city council, we were the envy of the state. Our police and fire pension funds were in a better status than virtually any city in the state. We ran in the black. We listened to our recorder treasurer when he warned us that maybe we're getting a little top heavy here, a little top heavy there. We need to cut expenses back. We bought and built the Rails to Trails, Word Park, Thornhill Courts, things that are really tremendous attributes for the city of Beckley.
And yet we have dilapidated buildings downtown that we need to tear down now.
Yeah,
We don't have.
Damien, let me ask you, where did you come from? What was your hometown?
That doesn't make
Oh,
any
okay.
difference to this
Okay,
conversation.
well,
This isn't about me.
it may if you're implying that Councilman Robertson and I didn't do our job. It's kind of a natural. It's a generational thing. It's a thing where when Cedric and I were growing up, every neighborhood in Beckley was pristine. The grass was cut. The houses were painted. That generation died off, and the same pride, for whatever reason, didn't move to that second generation. It's happening all over this country. So I think it is relevant to perhaps where you grew up.
And to get back to, I think what Dr. Amjad was saying, you got to weigh the old Beckley newspaper and the house beside the Joneses that live on Hunter Street, which is almost collapsing. And these people, these residents, are raising Cain. They call or talk to me at least 3 or 4 times a month. What are you all going to do about these houses? This house beside me has rodents and so forth. Well, we created a list, and the list is given to Mr. Cannon, who is our code enforcement officer. Now we have the home rule, which is in effect. It can probably be a lot easier now. But I understand the difference between the building downtown and the house beside Mr. Jones, where it's almost completely dilapidated, and you bring down that person's property value. So I understand what the residents want and what they're getting. It was taking, like I said, 8 or 9 years to get a house tore down here in the city of Beckley. And I'm ashamed to be a part of that.
That's a fact of life. It comes back to economics. We pledged, Cedric and I served on city council to take down 1 house per year. I think this last year, which would be 1 house per week, which would be 52 houses a year. I think currently in the current calendar year, we've taken down 56 houses. When you look at the tipping fee that the landfill charges us to dispose of these houses and the other costs involved, it's an expensive project. So it's not as if we're totally blind to what's going on around us and this decay. We're fighting it tooth and nail.
Is there any businesses that could be formed out of tearing down these houses?
Well, there probably are. In the old days, demolition companies felt that maybe the city was competing against them. But when they looked at what we can do with our manpower and our equipment and using the taxpayer's dollar to save as much as we can, there's zero conflict from demolition companies now, because we can do it so economically.
We need to move to education.
Yeah.
All right. So recently, Jim Justice, one of our Democratic candidates for governor, he said that he believes Beckley can be a hub for education. What can Beckley do along those lines in conjunction with WVU Beckley, WVU Tech, which will soon be opening its doors? What can the city do to help?
In my opinion, Beckley is already a hub for education. It's been suggested that Beckley should rename itself from the City of Champions to the City of Educational Champions. When you look at WVU Tech, the University of Charleston, who was very gracious during our time of need during the removal of MSU. When you look at the colleges that are represented at the Irma Byrd Center, we are a center of education, and it's only going to get better. The fact that we will use every available resource that WVU and these other higher education institutions have in terms of internship, whether it's grant writing, as Dr. Amjad has suggested, whether it's public safety, or whether it's engineering, we will utilize interns. And it's been my experience that once these students buy into these internships, they often become employees of whether it's a city or other businesses that are generated through these efforts. And this is how we attract, retain, and keep vibrant young people, the people who will lead this city in the future.
Okay. You mentioned the desire to make this kind of a hip, cool college town. So
Yeah.
I'd like to hear our other candidates' thoughts on
Like what kind of town now?
a hip college town, a cool
Hip hop,
college.
cool.
No,
Just
not
a
hip-
cool
not
college
hip-hop.
town. But just the lifestyle that comes along with a college town, just the, sense of, community. You go to Morgantown, there's the WVU feel to
We spent a lot of
Morgantown.
time, all four of our kids graduated from WVU.
Yeah.
And we spent a lot of
think that,
time there.
the sense of a young college town, the word that comes to mind for me is a vibrancy.
Absolutely,
Right?
yeah.
And I love our downtown. I go to Foster's when they have bands, and I love the architecture downtown. I don't like the holes in our downtown, and I don't like our parking meters downtown. But it has great potential. But it's lawyers, offices. There's no places for 3,000 to 5,000 young people coming into our town. There's no vibrancy in our downtown. So is it the chicken before the egg?
It's a chicken and egg situation, I think. Now,
But are we missing an opportunity to convince those parents that your kids are going to be safe? Look at this downtown. I just wonder if we're not leveraging this quickly enough.
Parking revenue and the fact that each month when we review our financial statement and see what the bond payment for the big project does to what was once, the parking commission was at one time a shining star in the city. It made money. As recorder treasurer and just out of the blue recently, I did a very informal study where I took the cost of our 2 meter attendants, all of their benefits, their pension payments, their uniforms, their radios, their telephones, everything that it costs to monitor on-street parking against our revenue. And there was very little difference. Our revenue from on-street parking was on an annual basis was in the $108,000 range. The cost of monitoring that, enforcing that, was in the $106,000 range for a very modest profit of, if my numbers are anywhere near correct, of $2,000. The problem, and I'm going to look at taking parking meters off the street if I'm elected mayor, but the problem is you're still going to have some enforcement, because downtown employees are going to slide into those spaces. People who are now paying monthly payments at very reasonable prices to park in our lots, anywhere from a minimum of $10 to $40 for the very choice lots, are going to come out of those lots, and they're going to take over that parking. So you're not going to remove all the costs. You're still going to have a parking meter attendant to police that. The whole, we have a committee now which will meet Wednesday morning to evaluate 7 architectural/engineering proposals to become the engineer and architect of record. And the very first project will be a design of what will go in the quote-unquote hole at the corner of Neville and Heber. So we're moving in that direction.
Okay.
To answer your question about the W Tech, we don't have a town center. To me, I feel like a town center should be the downtown area. It has moved to where the movie theater is and that part of town. So I think, with the influx of students and coming in, and since the campus is located in downtown walking distance, it would make sense to make that area better, because that's where they'll be congregating. In order to get that cool small town vibe, they're going to be hanging around there most likely. It's especially if they don't have cars and so forth and where they're going to live. But downtown has the potential to make it more attractive for young people to hang out in those areas. And for parking meters, in other cities, they have it where you pay by your phone. So you don't have to go out and put a quarter in every time. If you're sitting in Foster's or somewhere, you can, recharge your account by that way so that you don't have to worry about it running out of money. So whether or not the parking meters stay or go, those are options. Of course, it's going to cost money. But, if the students are coming in, downtown should be revitalized as the hub, the center of town, just like any other place, since the school is located in that area. And I don't know where they're going to build an engineering center. I read in the Charleston Gazette. I don't know where they plan on building that building.
We had that story in our paper.
Oh, okay.
That was in
Okay. Like the first time I saw it, I was in the Charleston paper. Was the first time I saw it. So where are they building that? Do we know?
Can we cut that out of this?
They said the South Kanawha campus, which fits
They
one
didn't have a location picked yet,
Yeah.
but they got one in proximity.
Okay, I was just curious.
Along
but,
Dr. Amjad's lines, I think everybody who hasn't treated themselves to a visit of the plaza area behind the Neville Street stores, that plaza area runs from, I'm tired of calling it the hole, it runs from the corner of Neville and Heber behind those doors all the way down to the Raleigh Theater. It's a beautiful plaza. It will be a beautiful gathering place for students. You'll see in time that it will do, as Dr. Amjad suggests, it will be a great place right in the center of town for students to congregate. There'll be great restaurants there. It's an exciting time. It's the sort of thing that keeps me awake at night when I start to think about it.
Mr. Robertson, do you want to add anything to that?
No.
Okay. So, let's talk about lifestyle, since we're kind of approaching on that. A year ago, let's go back here. There's a number of cities around the state have passed non-discrimination ordinance that protects the rights of gays, lesbians, bisexuals, and transgender people. You're getting an influx of 3,000 to 5,000 young students who this isn't so much, they value more so than folks of other generations in equality of treatment and non-discrimination. Would you support or would you offer up such an ordinance for Beckley? Dr. Amjad?
I'm not for discriminating anyone, whether it's their skin color, religion, sexual orientation. That question is very popular now, especially regarding bathroom facilities and gym lockers and so forth. I think it's going to take a lot of time for people to accept those changes, just like all the other changes that have occurred over time. I think if we plan on having young people come in who are, like you said, more progressive thinking and who want to be open-minded, we have to be ready for that to occur. It's like I said, I wouldn't discriminate against anybody.
But as mayor, would you push for such an ordinance?
In favor of, or?
Would you offer up? Would you say, Common Council, we need to pass a non-discriminatory ordinance for the city of Beckley?
I think we should. I think if we start that early on, it hopefully will erase some problems that would occur later on that should be tackled head on before we get a problem coming to us and we don't know how to handle it. So,
Mr. Robertson?
I've prayed about this because I know it's coming up. And I don't want to discriminate against anyone. As mayor, with WVU Tech coming in, I think it will be an issue that we would have to address with council. I'm somewhat concerned about the bathroom issues. So we would address it, yes.
Would you support it? What do your prayers tell you? What answers have you
Well,
gotten?
my prayers tell me
Got a person there, right?
to go with the word. But it's a very difficult issue. But again, I'm like Dr. Amjad. I will not discriminate against anyone. So, gotta pray some more.
Okay.
It's a tough issue. It's an issue that has been indicated will become more and more prominent as time moves on. West Virginia is bordered by, to my knowledge, more states than any other state in the Union. We have 5 states that border us, from Pennsylvania to Maryland to Ohio, Virginia, and Kentucky. Those 5 states, only the state of Maryland has passed legislation at the state level to broaden the rights of the LGBT community. There's a reason for that. In West Virginia, only 19% of West Virginians feel that same-sex marriage is right. That's a huge chasm between those who feel that way and the religious conservative community who have been so adamant about fighting LGBT broadened rights. As the doctor said, as Cedric has said, any city employee under my administration who I felt had been treated unfairly due to issues concerning gender would have my full support in whether it regarded housing, whether it regarded his employment or lack of employment, he or she would have my full support. The state needs to provide some leadership. As I mentioned, of the 5 states that are contiguous with the state of West Virginia, only Maryland at the state level has through their legislature, taken steps to broaden the rights of the LGBT community. Until we have that guidance and that leadership and that enforcement at the state level, I think that, frankly, I think that the 8 or 9 cities in the state of West Virginia that have taken it upon themselves through, I guess, political pressure to pass an ordinance that the state doesn't recognize, that the state can't enforce, have brought themselves some problems at this point. That's my opinion.
Well, let me ask you as a follow-up, you mentioned your full support of anyone who felt discriminated against in housing or workplace environments. Would you as mayor offer up more support for the Human Rights Commission?
Well, we would. Like, you know, and that's always been a tough issue. During the cost-cutting measures of 2013, the Human Rights Commission was downsized. It still meets regularly. We still fund their Fair Community Housing Seminar, which they'll be hosting very shortly. That's something we really have to look at. We eliminated the Human Rights Commission because we didn't feel that we had the funds for the investigative requirement that goes with having an active Human Rights Commission. When the state does have the funds, when the state does have people in place in the State Human Rights Commission to properly investigate and to properly adjudicate any measures that they find that need to be adjudicated, it's almost senseless for a city the size of Beckley to try to duplicate those services when the state provides them.
Can I add something to all this? You know, if we are going to want this place to be a college town and attract young people, we are going to have to be more progressive with these issues, whether or not it's starting an ordinance or having some more support. You know, everyone knows this. I think we all think the same. We all have our different religious views, personal views, sentiments, whether or not what we think is right or wrong. But regardless, those are separated from politics, or they should be separated. So, but if we want to be progressive, and if we want to have this place a college town, that is what the country is going towards. If you guys have seen it probably in the news, how everyone has backlashed Charlotte because of these ordinances. And whether it's right or wrong, we will all have different opinions, but when it comes down to it, it's going to become more prominent in the next 20, 30 years. It's not going to be discussed just the way racist relations were discussed a couple years ago, but we are going to have to deal with it, and if we deal with it faster, it's going to be better, especially if we expect young people to come in here and be accepted and be progressive and move forward. So.
I think we've run through our list of questions, but we wanted to give each of you some time to talk about anything that we may not have touched upon. Dr. Amjad.
No, I think we covered a lot of the most common things that we hear about. In all the meetings we've all gone to, all the questions we get from everybody, I think we touched on a lot of issues, which are good. So.
I think we've done a great job. I think you've done a great job. Wendy's done a great job in preparing the ground rules and the questions today. It's been a privilege and a pleasure for me to participate. I will reiterate my experience both in business and my involvement with the city. My involvement the past year and a half as quarter treasurer and working with 5 different department heads, plus the general manager of the Beckley Sanitary Board on daily issues. I review and either reject or approve every requisition every day that comes from the 5 departments and the Beckley Sanitary Board. So I exercise great control, hopefully, in our city expenses. I work with all the department heads, meet regularly with the fire chief, police chief, Board of Public Works, the IT department. I need to meet a lot more with them before I understand everything they do. But I feel that I'm highly qualified. It's come up a couple of times in my door-to-door campaigning that my good friend Mr. Robertson has indicated that if I were elected mayor, I would find a way to bring the former Mayor Emmett Pugh back into my administration in some form or fashion. Emmett Pugh's been a lifelong friend. I think he was a great mayor. I can say, and I've told Emmett, not that he needs to know, I had no idea, no thought of bringing Emmett back in. His time was well served. He's now retired from the city, and if I'm mayor, he'll remain retired from the city. But will also remain one of my good friends.
Well, and Mr. Rappold, to disagree with you, I have never told anyone that if you were elected mayor about you bringing Emmett back. That's going to know where it comes from. But I just feel that if I'm elected mayor, I've been out here in the public, I've worked in the public here in the city of Beckley all my life. I'm very reachable. I think I can address the crime in our area. I think I can address the homelessness in our area. And we want Beckley to thrive. And I love the city of Beckley. I love my home where I live in Ward 5. And again, I thank you all for inviting me, and I appreciate the question.
Well, Mr. Rappold, Mr. Robertson, Dr. Amjad, thank you for coming in today, and thank you for seeking public office. We all need great public service, so thank you.
Thank you.
Come see.